Hi everyone, let's go over my macro and high time frame bullish and bearish Elliott Wave scenarios on Bitcoin, starting with the macro bullish scenario where we are looking for a 5-wave structure to the upside in a wave 1, followed by a corrective wave 2 for then continuation to the upside in a bigger wave 3, which usually in an impulse is the strongest and biggest wave. Now you can see that the low of wave 2 over here has been made just above the 0.5 and just before the 0.382, and that is less common because the most common target area for a wave 2 is between the 0.5 and the 0.786 Fibonacci, taken from the low to the all-time high, and also most commonly a corrective structure that is correcting the previous impulse ends after the 0.382. If we go to the macro bearish scenario, then we are still expecting more downside, but first a move to the upside, where important resistance is the golden pocket to the 786 area taken from the high to the low over here. The reason being that the golden pocket is in great confluence with the point of control over here at around 39k, and the 786 is in confluence with the value area high of this volume profile at around 50k. So the area between 39 and 50k is incredible resistance for Bitcoin, which also is then the main target area for this wave B, for then a wave C to the downside. One can also label it a WXY, but it doesn't really matter for what we are looking for here, because we are then looking for a move to the downside, and locally in this move to the upside over here, we are looking for a zigzag, an A, B, C to the upside of 535, where again, this is the main target between 39 and 50k. If we then look towards the downside, then we have great support over here between 11k and 9k. First of all, the golden pocket taken from the low to the all-time high, but also inside the golden pocket, you see this blue line, which is the value area high of this volume profile, which offers incredible support. Besides, if over here the high of this green wave C is going to be made somewhere around the 786 area or the golden pocket area, then the most common target area for a wave C as well as a wave Y, the 1 to the 1.236, is in confluence with the golden pocket as well as the value area high of this volume profile. If we then go to the daily time frame, there's two scenarios that I like to share, and my thoughts on this time frame have changed, which is important and has especially something to do with the high time frame 2 scenario that I will show you in a second, and the box that you see over here. In this particular scenario, we were looking for the high to be over here, the high of A or 1, for then a 2 or B in the making, and then either a wave C or a wave 3 to the upside. Now the target remains the same. The 0.5 to the 0.786 is an important area of interest between 23.3k and 18.8k. And this impulse to the upside was then counted a 1, 2, 3 sideways 4 and then a 5-wave move to finish A or 1. And that is important because now we then have a 3-wave structure, and a wave 2 or a wave B has to be a 3-wave structure. However, we can count this as an ABC or a WXY. These highs over here took the high on the left, which is both a possibility in a flat, an ABC expanded flat scenario, or regular flat, which can also take this high, or a WXY scenario. And this is what's important. If this is a wave C in a wave A, B, and then a wave C to the downside, we are looking for a 5-wave impulsive structure to the downside. And if we look at this structure, which is something I cover, of course, in my daily updates, then at the moment it looks more like a 3-wave structure. Here we have then a 1, 2, 3 structure, then we have a sideways corrective pattern, and then we go down once more. If we count this in an impulse, then the count was 1, 2, 3, 4, looking for 5 to the downside. The problem with the 5 to the downside is that it didn't really go low enough to be a nice wave 5. And also, if we are zooming into this structure, which I do in my daily update videos, you can count an impulse to the downside over here. But if this is the low of your wave 5 and then a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the downside, then what is this, right? Because if this is your low and you want to continue impulsivity to the upside for a wave C or a wave 3, then this had to be the low and you want to see an impulsive structure to the downside and this low never to be taken again. But it did. And this sideways little structure and this new low are not a very nice combination with the impulse here. And you can't really count this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because of the length of this sideways structure. So Currently, an impulse is getting lower probabilities. Now, the other way of counting this is then a WX and then a wave Y to the downside. Now, if we look at a WXY to the downside, then this structure to the downside has to be counted as a three-wave structure, right? Now, what is important is that a wave W and a wave Y have to be different structures in a sideways double combo WXY scenario, and also a wave W or a wave Y is not allowed to be a WXY by itself. The probabilities for that are incredibly low. So if we look at this structure over here, and we would put this low as a low of a W, this is X, and then we're looking for a wave Y to the downside, then wave W over here is a zigzag structure in a 5-3-5, followed then by any correction in an X. But then the problem for Y becomes that this was a zigzag as well, but that's not allowed for a Y because then W and Y are exactly the same, so we needed more price action. But now this three-wave structure in a zigzag by itself is becoming a W, and then you have an X, and then you have a Y. But as just mentioned, you're not allowed to have a WXY in a bigger wave Y. WX, Y to the downside, and then this bigger wave Y is by itself a WXY, but that's not allowed, right? So we have to change the pivot. So, okay. If we then keep the high over here, but change the pivot to this low. So we say this is W over here, then we have wave X, and now we have a wave Y to the downside. Then the problem becomes that this wave W becomes a WXY zigzag, any correction, and again a structure to the downside, which is not what you want. And this then increases the probability. So because of the difficulty of like the WXY scenario here, it increases the probabilities for this scenario to be the right scenario on the higher time frame. Now, the target for B or 2 does not really change because you still take the fib from the low to this high instead of this high. So it's a minimal change. The 0.5 to the 886 is a target here because for wave B, the 886 is also a target, but most commonly the 786 to the 05, which is between 23.6K and 18.9K. As you can see, the move to the upside is counted a little bit different. We now have a 1, 2, and then the big wave 3 to the upside, which also volume-wise is matching very well because over here we then have wave 1 and wave 3 has the highest amount of volume, and then eventually last push to the upside has lower volume than what we had in wave 3, which is exactly what you want to see for a final push to the upside in a wave 5. So then you have 1, 2, 3, sideways 4, 5, 4 retracing to the 382, by the way, taken from the low of 2 to the high of 3. And this is the end then of your wave A or your wave 1. In this particular scenario, we can have a WXY because now wave W here is then a zigzag structure. We get an X and a Y, and also this wave W is a zigzag, but we could have a potential sharp zigzag, for example, in this particular scenario where you have a zigzag correction zigzag, and then this is a W, X, and a Y. And now you might say, but wait, you just said that a W and a Y are not allowed to have the same structure. That is correct for a sideways double combo, which is also labeled WXY, but then you have a sideways structure and not a deep retracement to the downside, which can then be a double zigzag. Of course, wave Y can also then still be a triangle or a flat, but at least this can now be labeled as a WXY, which is important, and a double zigzag is something we have to keep in mind, which will lead us to lower prices to come, and then W now in a bigger X, and eventually we are looking for a Y to the downside. So this scenario at the moment, because of what we see in this big range, and especially with what we had over the past, few weeks over here, the probabilities are increasing for this to be the correct impulsive count to the upside in a wave A or 1, and we're then looking for a different WXY structure to the downside. Again, the targets remain the same, but this is detail, right? I'm bringing you Elliott Wave knowledge. Of course, the targets are the same, so I could have said, well, targets are the same and that's it, but I think it is important for all of you to understand what I am looking for and what my thoughts are based on, right? It's a lot of knowledge, it's a lot of rules, and I hope you also learn by watching these videos. So then the probabilities of the different scenarios, well, on the macro, both in the bearish as well as the bullish scenario, we are looking still for a move towards the upside. Of course, in the bullish scenario, you want to have upside anyway. And in the bearish scenario, we are looking for that golden pocket to 2786 area, which is between 39K and 50K. And on the daily time frame, currently, as mentioned, the scenario that is gaining in probability is this scenario over here, where we have an A or 1. We would still be looking for a B or 2 and then a move towards the upside. The main difference actually between this particular scenario and this one is that we will spend more time down here, because we are now looking for this WXY instead of a shorter amount of time down here and then a move up. And also we can reach some deeper prices potentially. But that of course is yet to be seen with all the daily updates that I give you and all the knowledge I share. So I hope this video was helpful or valuable to you. Please check out the most recent educational video I've made about the best trading indicator you can use in my opinion. And for now, thanks for watching and subscribing, and I'd like to see you at the next one. Bye bye.